Thank you. So, welcome to my presentation about the research we did on how mixed teaching teams do influence learning in IT MOOCs. So, my name is Catrina John. I'm research associate and PhD student here in Germany. I'm a sociologist in an IT institute. So, let's see what I want to show you about our results. So, social participation and co-creation are tied to the digital world. Every man and woman should be able to move autonomously in the digitalized world, but men feel more competent than women in dealing with the challenges of digitization very often. Even though the hard sciences and education overall have become more welcoming towards females, social biases against women's abilities in the STEM fields continue to exist and negatively affect the professional development. Appropriately, women are underrepresented in STEM. So we asked, could new formats of further education be a chance for those underrepresented groups? Because MOOCs provide a promising mix of structure with new learning content on a weekly basis and deadlines and flexibility on the other side. Participation in MOOCs is almost unlimited, scalable without entrance criteria. And high-quality learning content is available online, and gender seems to go in the background. Indeed, digital teaching and learning do not fulfill gender diversity of wide scope. Female instructors as well as participants are still a minority in IT MOOCs. So we intend to identify influencing factors to facilitate female contribution and attendance in digitally supported learning. According to the discussion about the relevance of female role models to arouse and strengthen and maintain girls' interest in IT, we focus on how mixed teaching teams influence learning in IT MOOCs. The impact of mixed teaching teams on learning quality and outcomes of diverse target groups in a massive open online learning context in the workplace is scarcely analyzed yet. Accordingly, this session will answer the research question how male-only and mixed teaching teams influence IT MOOCs in regard to the proportion of female learners, participation in the discussion forum, and success rates. It will be backed by the learning data gathered in time of running 2 courses about blockchain on our MOOC platform OpenHPI with a mixed teaching team and a male teacher. Female instructors may imply a gender-sensitive course design and lower the inhibition threshold for girls and women and make it easier for them to get started. Therefore, we assume that in MOOCs with at least one female instructor, more women participate in courses than in courses with only a male instructor. We assume that in MOOCs with a female instructor, a higher proportion of women participate more intensively in the discussion forum than in courses with only male instructors. And furthermore, as social elements are fundamental for a rich learning experience to reconstruct and expand complex knowledge and understanding, we expect that a higher proportion of women complete the MOOC of a mixed teaching team more successfully than online courses of only a male facilitator. In a collaborative teaching setting, at least 2 facilitators share resources to plan and implement a course, as well as to assess learning. Even though the teacher's level of participation may vary and change throughout the teaching, co-teaching inclusively welcomes and appreciates members of a learning community with different abilities. The effectiveness of co-teaching skills depends on teachers' positive social interdependence and interaction, for example, mutual encouragement and facilitation of each other's efforts and complementary roles. Those characteristics help foster positive energy in the teaching and learning community and increase achievement. Nevertheless, practice has shown that teachers rarely communicate with each other in front of the learners to avoid confusion and that to plan co-teaching is more time-consuming than to plan lessons on their own. Self-selected teaching teams show significantly more shared responsibility and enjoyment with the co-teaching process, but it is not a guarantee for a higher quality of collaborative learning. Heterogeneous gender mixed teams exhibited particularly strong co-support and cooperated more effectively than homogeneous teams, whereas high heterogeneous teams in tenure were less supportive and effective than low heterogeneous teams in that attribute. Typically, online learners are on average well-educated, working men in their mid-40s, and diversity is still a large issue. In general, women receive worse performance ratings than men when they have a share of less than 20%, even after cognitive ability, education, experience, etc. were controlled. In contrast, some studies found out that females academically perform slightly better than males in online learning environments. So our analysis is based on the learning data of 2 comparable courses in German on blockchain with more than 14,000 enrollments. The first is Blockchain, Hype or Innovation, conducted by a male professor and a female research associate. And the second course is called Blockchain Security Even Without a Trust Center, with only a male teacher. The gender of the tutors was clear right from the beginning of the sign-up process. The courses are entirely online, open for everyone and free to use. All the material provided is accessible from any device connected to the internet. As our MOOCs are addressing not only employees but also students and other lifelong learners, we include a closer look at learners' socio-demographic background. So, on average, our female participants use their computer regularly, mainly on an intermediate level, for example, for text processing or database administration. By contrast, the majority of our male learners our male participants reported a high level of computer use, for example, software engineering, adaptation of computer games, programming in languages like Java or Python, and network administration too. We use descriptive and multivariate research methods in social science to statistically analyze our participants' learning data and outcomes, as well as accompanying survey data. So, in the course taught by a mixed teaching team, 17% women participated. And against our expectation, the proportion of women was a little bit higher in the second iteration of the course taught by a male teacher. But the total number of female participants was smaller in the course given by the mixed teaching team than in the course given by a mixed teaching team. This is also true for our first-time attendees. Even if female instructors imply that a gender-sensitive course design might lower the inhibition threshold for women, the gender of the course facilitators is not a guarantee for a high amount and high proportion of female participants. Innovative continuing education formats such as massive open online courses still have a different activation potential for male and female learners, even though a mixed teaching team leads the course. So this particularly applies when participants are recruited from the same pool as other IT MOOCs, which was the case in our study. Independent of the teaching team's gender, women seem to post somewhat fewer questions, answers, and comments than men in the discussion forum. Under a male teacher, women open on average slightly but statistically significant less discussion threads than men. Independent of the teaching team's gender, a slightly higher proportion of female than male learners participate actively in the discussion forum. The small difference between female and male participants appears on a slightly higher level also in the course of a male teacher with lower enrollments in total. But in principle, women seem to profit from the relative anonymity and time to formulate answers in online discussion forums. In the course taught by a mixed teaching team with large enrollment numbers, participants' learning outcome is on average at a lower level than in the course given by a male professor with less enrollments in total. Apart from this, the difference between female and male learners is in the course taught by a mixed teaching team smaller than in the course taught by a male teacher. With a mixed teaching team, 36% female participants and 40% male participants received a confirmation of participation by completing at least 50% of the course material. With a male professor, 38% female learners and 48% male learners completed the course successfully. In the course given by a mixed teaching team, women reached on average 23% and men statistically significant, slightly more. In courses taught by a male professor, women and men get slightly higher results. In the course with a mixed teaching team, 1/4 of our female learners and 27% of our male learners received a record of achievement by earning 50% or more of the maximum number of points from all graded assignments. In the iteration of a male professor and fewer enrollments, the proportion of participants who successfully complete the MOOC with a record of achievement is slightly higher, but the gap between female and male learners increases by 5%. Likewise, in the MOOC with a mixed teaching team and large enrollment numbers, 5% of female participants and 6% of our male learners were among the top 5, top 10, and top 20%. With a male professor, 7% of our female learners and 9% of our male participants score particularly well. There were 1,435 participants enrolled in both courses. Based on this paired sample, we attempt to analyze the main effect of the different gender of the teaching team in both courses. We calculate a general linear model with measurement repetition and found out that learners who participated in both courses opened more discussion threads and posted more questions, answers, and comments in the forum of the course with a mixed teaching team. Altogether, a mixed teaching team has a positive effect on the participants' willingness to communicate in the discussion forum for this subtotal. Furthermore, they visited more items and received more points in the course with both a male and a female teacher than in the course with only a male teacher. In all, a mixed teaching team positively influences the learning achievement. The overall positive effect of a mixed teaching team on participants' willingness to open discussion threads applies especially for female learners. This figure visualizes the differences between male and female learners in the course of a mixed teaching team and a male-led MOOC concerning active participation and achievement. In the course of a mixed teaching team, women have the courage to open more new threads than men do. The overall positive effect of a mixed teaching team remains valid for both subgroups. Although women engage significantly less with the online learning content in STEM than men. This difference is considerably smaller in the course with a mixed teaching team than in the course of a male teacher. Based on this result, a mixed teaching team seems to support those women who feel less attracted by a male or a male-dominated course in following through on online learning in STEM. Instructed by a mixed teaching team, women as well as men achieve significant higher results than in the course given by a male teacher. In the course conducted by a mixed teaching team, women's backlog compared to men's achievements tend to be somewhat smaller than in a male-led course. Accordingly, especially female participants who find it easier to learn from female role models could profit from a mixed teaching team in STEM. Via a multivariate ANOVA, we tested potential influences of additional socio-demographic characteristics. And we found a significant but very small effects of highest degree and career status on items visited and points achieved, as well as effects of highest degree on learning achievements. There were 1,870 learners who participated in the surveys conducted after the end of both courses, 309 women and 1,528 men. Among other questions, we asked how they rate the quality of the course. And in the bar chart, it is shown that the majority of participants rated the quality of content as good, especially the quality of the MOOC held by a mixed teaching team. Nevertheless, particularly female participants evaluated the quality of content of the MOOC given by a mixed teaching team as good or very good, whereas male participants evaluated the course given by a male teacher better than the female learners did. Up to now, most MOOCs in STEM have been created by men and for men, but online course design could integrate inclusive practices across the learning environment for all learners to enjoy. So we have shown that mixed teaching teams have positive effects on active participation and learning outcomes of female as well as male learners, and reduce differences between female and male participants in online courses. Heterogeneous teaching teams are fundamental for inclusive further education. And beyond teaching team constellations, single participants profited from a high status of the teacher and a smaller course size. We nevertheless state that our case study is based on a self-appointed sample and not a strict experiment. The female teacher, as a junior member of the mixed teaching team, may have an effect on the results too. Besides, the participants of our post-survey are generally successful learners who are still active at the end of the course. Accordingly, the results have to be interpreted cautiously. In our further research, we want to focus on the behavior of the teaching team by gender. For example, a well-functioning mixed teaching team might be reflected by a well-functioning diverse learning group, whereas poorly functioning mixed teaching teams, in which, for example, the main facilitator repeats a woman's word in his own words, can also result in discriminating behavior in the online learning context. So this is my input, and now I would like to thank you, and I'm open for your questions.
All right, thank you so much. And there is time for questions. So if you have questions, please put them, type them in the chat, and if you want to get the microphone, we can do that as well. Or when further questions come in to the chat, you mentioned at the end of both your paper and the presentation that it's not just the mixed nature of a teaching team, but the behavior of the teaching team by gender you expect to have an impact. So what are some of your thoughts on behaviors that you aren't seeing that maybe you would hope to see in the future among mixed teaching teams?
Yeah, so it is very important that the teaching teams encourage all different learners to participate and engage in the discussion forum, because it is very important that they further discuss the topics there, answer questions, ask questions when they arrive, and not, that's very important. And I would see more diverse teaching teams also in other categories, for example, in regard to race and age and career status. So we are experimenting with different teaching teams, for example, students who provide courses for pupils, postdocs of different origins and different backgrounds, not only with an IT background, but other backgrounds which are interesting for IT people as well.
And in terms of the way that the professors, the instructors, and the teachers need to interact, so when they're a team, is there more than that they need to do to sort of really to be truly, I guess, inclusive rather than just diverse, right? So that the roles are, that it's not perceived as one person is clearly junior unless that is actually their status, but that everything is sort of made clear that the different teachers have different and equal roles, and that will help you. There are things that they need to do to sort of bring that change about.
Yeah, that's right. In our MOOCs, the teaching team provides the videos and offers further questions and self-tests and assignments. And in some MOOCs, they also try to activate the discussions in the discussion forum. But because of the large amount of learners who are participating, the discussion runs almost from their own. So the teachers try to keep in the background in the discussion forums, and with more participants, they have to read more. With fewer participants, they have to answer or write more in the discussion forum. But mostly this is a very dynamic learning group, and they interact with each other, and they don't ask only the teacher, but want to further discuss some topics with the learning community itself.
Other than things, just for one last question, my final one, I promise, along these lines, are there things that you think maybe the teachers ought to consider doing to set the tone for the course, or at the beginning of the course, that might help encourage better participation, particularly among women, or anything? Is there something they can do to establish the tone from the beginning that makes it a more open environment and makes it clear that they very much want participation from everyone?
Yeah, of course. So in our case, we have very many participants who are participating for a long time already, and they know the tone, they know our discussion forum rules, but it is very helpful what the teachers are explaining at the beginning, that it is very important to be a supportive learning community, to appreciate every question, and to support each other, to help each other.
Are there things that you are recommending or would recommend that a university organization do to try to help the teachers learn to better facilitate this kind of a course, in an inclusive way? Is that something that is this something that you find that the teachers need or would benefit from some additional advice, at the very least, from someone in the area?
Yes, it is not very easy, but they have to think about the issue, because a lot of them never heard about the topic gender in IT. They don't know that there are some stereotypes which every one of us has, and not know at every time that they are appearing. So there's a lot of things to do so that they understand that the relevance of this topic, and that's also what I'm doing here at the Institute with every talk and every presentation and my research in total.
Right. So that's right. You have an effect on, right. You can have an effect on society sort of by getting the word out and making the results of your research clear. When you look ahead, you mentioned future research on behavior. Are there specific studies that you're working on now that you can talk about a little bit, what you kind of have in mind as the next step that you're working on now or about to be working on?
So currently I'm working on the effects of Corona on our learning offers. So whether Corona increases the participants, the numbers of participants, and also the selectivity of our participants. So I told that the most of our participants are male learners in the mid-40s, who are very well educated. And now I want to analyze if this socio-demographic background is changed by the crisis we have already in the media. There's a lot of about that women fall back in the traditional role of a mother or something else, and I want to analyze these effects, whether they are visible in our massive data or not.
Oh, okay. That's fascinating and really interesting to work on. What's the timing look for your study? When do you think you'll have something to report back?
Oh, I hope in at least 3 months. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's yeah. No, I know there's added pressure and everything. Everything is so, the speed of everything seems to have increased dramatically all of a sudden, and trying to get more information out. So there's a lot there. That's really interesting work and a challenging problem I know that you're facing, especially in IT. My own company is doing some work on diversity and inclusion in the legal field with the same client who's famous for Ray and Jane, who we saw earlier. And so they're finding a lot of the same challenges that you've been talking about in that field as well, in terms of diversity and inclusion. And there's a lot of work to be done. There's no question. Hopefully the work that our team is doing and the course that they're putting together will help in that field. And that's the goal of that particular course, by trying to put people in realistic situations and help understand what the issues are and what the consequences are of things that you might even do or say that you're not aware of and don't maybe consciously mean anything by, but that are going to have a dramatic effect on the way that people feel. So, well, thanks so much. Appreciate your being here. It's great to have you here, and thanks for taking the time to be with us. Hopefully you'll be able to stick around for a little bit through the chat, and there may be some other questions that come up. So really enjoyed the session. So thanks again.